So I'm just going to briefly touch on so that we can lead generations across the generations effectively. I want to touch on where those differences in generations come from, because each generation was shaped by the world that they grew up in. And I love this sort of stuff. Like, I love this kind of psychosociology. Each generation was shaped by the technology, the economy, the parenting norms. Imagine the impact that social media has on a generation of children. Those influences shape how we all view authority, communication, what success looks like. So, an example is baby boomers came of age in a time of post war rebuilding. So, there was a lot of instability up until World War II, which ended in 1945. And the generation that was born after that were raised in a way, again, this is a generalization, that stability was valued. And so that is a generation that might prefer long term careers, loyalty, working for organizations for long periods of time, structure. Generation X was probably the first generation where many children of the generation had both parents in the workforce. And so Generation X typically grew up with more independence, so might value more self-reliance and efficiency and autonomy. And also, if we just think of the age of Gen X and elder millennials now in the workforce, they are making up our senior leaders and in a lot of cases, our executive leaders. So that sort of doubles down on that autonomy and efficiency. Millennials entered the workforce during some economic instability in the early 2000s. So a lot of the time, and I think this does align with me as a millennial, we value purpose and balance and meaningful work. I remember when I first started my first ever lecture at university for the first time ever, which was in 2003, my lecturer, my marketing lecturer said, this will be the first of between, I can't remember the number, but between 8 and 10 different careers that you'll have in your life. Because the research back then, and that has definitely tracked moving forward, was that millennials will be one of the first generations to have complete career changes, not just job changes, but career changes over the course of our lives. And if I think about most of my friends and people that I know who are millennials, that's pretty aligned. And then we have our Gen Z, who have never known a world without the internet. I hate it. I feel so grateful to have had a childhood without the internet. Ironic because you are listening to this through the internet. But Gen Z move fast. They're a technological generation. They learn visually more often because they have been so much more exposed to visual stimuli through the internet and social media. They expect inclusion. They expect authenticity. So there's some differences that you might see based on different generations you are working with. And when we understand that context, then we can start to make sure that we're sort of moving away from a place of frustration, but realize that we can stop labeling them and just start leading them as individuals. One flag that I will make is that, yes, we're talking about broad character traits based on generations. And as I said at the beginning, it is not a one size fits all, but we are making some generalizations. What I have seen firsthand in the workplace is generational bias. In particular, the way that I have seen this, actually, no, I've seen a couple of iterations, and I'll share with you the examples that I've seen firsthand. One was a Gen X, maybe an elder millennial leader leading a baby boomer who made an incredibly unfair assumption that that baby boomer was going to be less able to pick up new skills, less open to learning new things, was going to be quite slow and really difficult to lead. That is a completely unfair age bias and generational bias. It was not true. I called this person on it. I hope they learned their lesson, but I do see that. And we do see it the other way around as well. So you might see baby boomers or Gen X or even millennials looking at Gen Z as if they are deficient in something, as if they're going to be quite skittish. I've heard many people in leadership say that Gen Z are lazy or they're less engaged because, in general, Gen Z look for better balance in their work. And as I said, might be less driven to climb the corporate ladder. One resource that I read around that was because it's so unlikely that they will be able to buy a home, which is what drove baby boomers, Generation X, and to an extent millennials. That goal is so far away because of how our economy is now that they don't see the point of killing themselves at work just to get higher, just to earn more when they won't see a benefit to their lifestyle. But I do see sometimes some leaders looking down at younger people in their workplace. And that can also happen when you have peer levels, like, say, maybe a senior leadership team that have a lot of different generations in it. So instead of working together, they kind of identify their differences and nitpick one another.